Exilelord has made plenty of infamous Guitar Hero charts that manage to keep top players consistently engaged with the game. Whether it's Misadventure for its popular tree verse or Hollow for its fast strumming sections, his discography is nothing short of amazing when you think about how many charts and songs he has written for the game that still keep players entertained today. Some FCs on these charts would take longer than others, a couple months, a couple years, maybe a couple more years, but they would eventually be FC'd. Well, most of them would be at least. One song in particular managed to stand through the test of time, top player after top player trying throughout the years, and what would end up happening was something not a single person would have expected. This is the score progression of Epidox. Epidox would be released on May 10th, 2010 by Exilelord. While the song sounds rather dark in general, the tone of the notes had a bit more of an innocent feel to them overall. However, as the song progresses, you are slowly coerced into a much darker second half, and the song slowly tries to overwhelm the listener as the song gets more and more intense until the outro. As for the note chart, it pretty much does the same thing, with a little bit of a twist here and there, and that's exactly what we'll get into now. Robotic Verse will be the first notable section that could give players a hard time. A 13-second strumming section with very precise timing due to the numerous pull-ups you have to perform and can cause players to restart quite often early in the song. Mad vs. C will really be the only other section that gives players the most trouble in the first half. This is more or less reverse solo strumming, where the order of the notes are essentially reversed as you are no longer able to anchor the green note the entire time. This forces players to not necessarily hit each note, but each color individually and still maintain the same strumming precision as a normal solo strumming section. After this, you almost have a full minute to relax. For someone's first playthrough, they might be confused and wonder what is so difficult about this chart for top players. You're already halfway through and really only had two notably hard sections. As the build-up gets darker and darker, it throws you a complete curveball with this. This is Robotic Buildup. Remember what these notes look like and remember this section name, because this is going to be our focal point for a good chunk of our journey. This section is almost indescribably hard. There's just so much to unpack here, and why Exilelord threw it in here as a build-up section is a mystery. Imagine Robotic Verse, but way faster, with chords, and it even gets faster as the section progresses. This section is only 4.5 seconds long, so these BPM changes are going to hit you fast. While this may be the hardest section in the song, keep in mind that this is a build-up, so we haven't even seen what this builds up to. For a top player, Crazy Trips and Crazy Chimneys are actually fairly tame sections, but what it transitions into is the biggest run killer of them all, and that's the crazy strumming section. This section is 26.6 notes per second strumming, and what a place for it to be not before, but well after Robotic Buildup. After one more time to rest, you then have two final sections that will make or break any good run you might have on this song. These are Hellish Zigzags and the Hellish Quads. Again, not super strenuous once you have the method down and are playing the sections by themselves, but if you're on the right run, this section can cause nerves like no other. And that's basically Epidox in a nutshell. Now that we have gone over all the hard sections, you now all have the knowledge to take a trip back to almost a decade ago. So let's take a look at where this all began. There virtually wasn't a single documented full run of the song after almost a full year of its initial release. People were playing the song, but they were often playing easier versions of the chart. This could be due to the limitations GH Tunes has to offer when charting harder songs, as people who didn't have access to Guitar Hero 3 PC were often playing on other versions of Guitar Hero on console. It seemed like it was too daunting to play in its entirety, as most people were simply uploading section FCs at the time. Whether it was the trips, the chimneys, players were really only dipping their toes into the Epidox pool rather than trying to immerse themselves in full-fledged runs of it. The first full run of the song would be by G Gamerman on April 7th, 2011, with a score of 772,097 points.
Yes! Got it on vid. 98! Hell yeah! 3 sections missed. Holy shit.
This run was pretty stellar to say the least. especially for the first documented full run of this song. Aside from a slip up in Mad vs. C, he had only missed in 2 sections, Robotic Buildup and Crazy Strumming. While 2 sections may sound like he is pretty close already, we have to keep in mind that he had gotten a 65% on Robotic Buildup and an 85% on Crazy Strumming, so there was definitely some work to do before we could say he was close. 5 days later, Gamerman would manage to snag the first ever FC on Robotic Buildup on April 12, 2011.
Oh my god! Holy shit!
As for the score, no one really attempted to beat it, and the runs that were done were not exactly close. Most people were still focused on nabbing certain sections of the song rather than playing it in its entirety. We wouldn't see any progress on the song, but Gamerman came back with an FC on Robotic Buildup again, but this time it was at 110% speed.
Wow, I actually recorded that one. Someone else hit this section, please. I don't understand how no one else has hit this section yet. I mean, I get it's hard. On normal speed, I get it's hard. But how is no one hitting? Besides me. I've hit it 35 times, and no one else has hit it. I don't get it. Someone please do it.
It made sense that he was trying to FC this section at a faster speed, as this will condition him to be able to tackle it at normal speed much easier in his future runs. This would end up working quite well, as a week later, he would lower the note count all the way down to -6 and win a new high score of 802,734 points.
$800K! That is a pretty good run. -6? What? -6.
The results screen is pretty hard to decipher at the end of the video, but from what we could see during the run, he had an amazing robotic buildup and did pretty solid on the fast strumming. This section usually requires a tactic called rake strumming, where the player normally uses 2 or more fingers to strum the guitar, spreading their fingers in a rake-like fashion to hit fast strumming sections with less motions than intended. There weren't many players doing this method at all back then, so fast strumming sections were often the Achilles heel for top players back in the day, so players usually had to come up with their own technique. A few months went by and there would be no signs of progress on the song anytime soon. Gamerman would come back after another long break from the song, and while we didn't have any footage of the actual run, the results screen speaks for itself.
I could cry right about now. Do you guys see robotic buildup and crazy strumming? I didn't FC up to there. I FC'd robotic buildup and crazy strumming and missed in the quads at the end. What the fuck? This was a random run. I could cry. Look at that note streak too. I could just cry.
This run was a complete 180 from any of his other attempts on it. He had missed in Hollowverse, Mad vs. C, and Hellish Quads, but FC'd robotic buildup and crazy strumming in the same run. This made for a very interesting reverse choke, and probably one of the most interesting ones that could possibly be done on this song. This time, over a full year would go by, but eventually he would return to consistent attempts on the song, announcing on his Facebook page that he would be going for FC runs on September 19th, 2013. Sadly, no runs came out of this from what we can assume from his YouTube channel. At this point, it was starting to become a cycle of him coming back to the song, making some progress, and then fading back away from it. On December 27th, 2013, he would post a 120% FC on robotic buildup, showing that he still did have some interest in the song.
Yep, I hit it again. Awesome. With hands. I will upload that.
The majority of the comments on this video were attempts at motivating him to go back to the full song and attempt to FC it at normal speed. But fans were more or less being teased at this point, because he had then posted another FC of the same section, but now at 125% speed.
Yeah! 125!
This was actually a monumental section FC. as some people considered this to be the best section FC at this time, and even to this day is considered to be one of the best. We can't forget what the focus is, however, because the full song still has to be FC'd, or at the very least, some sort of lowered miscount. Sadly, this would be the last we would hear from G Gamerman for a while, as he would eventually move on to speedrunning Super Mario 64. The song would slowly fade into obscurity, barely receiving play, and no one else bothered to lower the miscount any further. Most top players that did have footage of the song only had footage of specifically them FC'ing the infamous build-up, and the song would eventually devolve into a section rather than a song. About 2 years would go by, and Epidox would be practically buried in the gravestone of unfinished FCs. There would be a glimmer of hope though, as King Chevy 7 would come along and post a new world record on the song, but was a bit shy of G Gamerman's miscount, getting 812,340 points and missing 11 notes.
Yes! Yes! $802.
Nice, by 10K.
Minus 11.
That's pretty good.
That's really good.
I mean, that's 11 more notes that you missed than you should have, but...
This would be the only run of Epidox from him, and there would yet again be another hunt for another player to take a swing at it. Megapang FC'd the full solo on 110%, and Leaf Green would FC'd on 105%. But again, no actual signs of the song being FC'd anytime soon. With the rise of Solus 4 becoming a viable chart to FC in 2018, some people decided to backtrack a bit and discuss over the months whether or not Epidox was able to be FC'd. Some people thought if G Gamerman came back, he would be the first one to do it, given his consistency on robotic buildup. Others thought Darkly would be a viable option given his phenomenal Solus 4 improvements, and also some discussion about Frosted snagging the first FC as well. Asai gave his attempts on stream before, but nothing seemed to come out of it. Even the creator of the song was now wondering when this chart would be FC'd. One discussion in particular would stick out a bit, as this player was pretty under the radar at the time, but would begin to improve at an insanely fast rate. His name was Borealis. Borealis is a player that entered into the scene pretty late, posting an FC of Minds of the Mad as one of his first videos on March 10th, 2018. Lots of people, including top players, were completely thrown off by the raw talent he had in his short presence on the site. The discussion about Borealis FC'ing Epidox occurred right after he FC'd 4 of Exilelord's most iconic charts just 2 days from each other: Solus 3, Hollow, Amalgamation, and Misadventure. This was probably the fastest improvement rate anyone had ever seen, so spectators were curious what else he had in store. During that same discussion on Discord, someone noted that it would be a bit more difficult to FC the song on Clone Hero, the current client used for Guitar Hero now, than Guitar Hero 3 PC due to the strumming engine not being as consistent, thus making robotic build-up and crazy strumming much harder. Whether or not Borealis wanted to switch to Guitar Hero 3 or not was completely up to him, and he would ultimately choose the latter. Borealis would start to play Epidox under the radar, as at the time, not many people knew if he was even streaming or not. He would post a -13 with a score of 949,942 points on October 22nd, 2018. A significant improvement score-wise, but the large gap is most likely explained by the overlapping star power mechanic Clone Hero offers. Nonetheless, it seemed like there was yet another contender on the rise to pull the FC off given his absurdly fast improvement rate, so at this point, it was up to him to see how bad he wanted it. What people didn't know was that a couple days before this, there was another player that was even more under the radar and was winning the race without many people knowing. His name was Send It. Send It had posted his first video on YouTube just 2 months after Borealis, and was also showing very similar skill improvement as well. His Epidox progress video that was posted 2 days before Borealis' screenshot was the best progress on the song yet, FC'ing robotic build-up 8 times in one sitting, and got a -5 with a full solo FC, nabbing the high score on it as well with 950,289 points.
Okay. Wow. Full solo FC, I guess.
So now there were two contenders that had never been present in the community before on the brink of making history, and there was no telling who would be the one to get it. On November 26th, 2018, some people in the Clone Hero Discord were watching Borealis' attempts on it, and reported that he had obtained a -1. There doesn't seem to be any footage that exists of this, but luckily we have a screenshot with the stream chat showing to show that it was the real deal. At this point, the score wasn't about points anymore. It was all about lowering the miscount by just one more note. You know what the craziest part about this run was? It wasn't even the fact that Borealis was one note away from getting one of the best FCs of all time. But what people didn't know was that the only time he had FC'd Robotic Buildup was in a solo compilation that he did a month later. He had never FC'd every section before this run, and he was now the one that was closer than anyone else had ever gotten.
Yes!
Sendit wasn't going to let him get too far ahead, however, because we would begin to see a string of Epidox videos in the beginning of 2019. A 110% FC on Robotic Buildup, a Robotic Buildup into full solo FC, and then a few days later to top it all off, he FC'd Robotic Buildup 6 times in a row. This time, players weren't slowly losing interest in the song. It just kept getting more and more intense as the weeks went by, and the fact that there were two underdogs going for it made for one of the most fascinating rivalries in this game's history. Both starting their YouTube channels in the same time period, having the same skill progression, and now they are just one missing note left from setting their name in stone as an icon in the community. So which player would take it?
Okay. I'm so freaking nervous. Piece of crap.
Borealis had missed his transition from Hellish Zigzags into the Hellish Quads and would ultimately miss his best chance at FC'ing Epidox. A devastating way to miss, as he had gotten past all the hard sections, but tripped up on what would normally be a relatively standard transition. But in the heat of the moment, it might not have been that easy. At this point, who knows who would take it now? Would Sendit swoop in and take it from Borealis? Would a new player or top player come out of the woodwork and steal from both of them? Or would the song fall back into the rabbit hole and potentially never see any play from it again, only to live on as the FC that could have been? Luckily, none of these options would happen, because Borealis managed to do this just shortly after.
Yes, let's go. I was a little scared that was too early. Come on. Oh my gosh, no way! Sorry, send it. It is done. A full day's worth of effort for that. Yes. Yeah.
Epidox had finally been FC'd after almost a decade of the song being out. The fact that most top players wouldn't even go for full runs of the song in the first place showed that this was a very intimidating chart. It's still rather surprising to this day that such recent players of the game would revisit a chart from so long ago and take it to the lengths they did. One of the big takeaways from this would be that it is definitely never too late to start playing this game, as the game is more accessible than ever and there are tons of charts to help you develop to your full potential. Borealis and Sendit may not even be outliers for all we know, and there could be another prodigy just around the corner, improving faster than ever, and could start writing some history of their own. All we can do is wait and see what happens, because whatever it is, it eventually will. This concludes the score progression of Epidox. I'd like to give a big shout out to my patrons for supporting me, and if you would like to see more rhythm gaming content like this, feel free to check out my Patreon along with my other links below. I'll see you all in whatever video I upload next, and take care.